sight.
It was wantonly horrible and inhumane. He suffered.
This case was about lust, greed, and murder.
2 men died 6 years apart, both poisoned by the same woman. Lynn Turner and Randy Thompson trusted Julia Lynn with their lives. She fed them antifreeze hidden in sweet food, collected their insurance money, and walked away. For years, no one connected the death.
Toolbox, so they're very aware of the different ways that they can defraud money, so they'll be aware of hidden identities, fraudulent loan applications, and so on.
Here's how 2 mothers saw what medical examiners missed and the sweetness that convicted her. This story begins with a man who believed in marriage. This story starts quietly, but it won't leave you unchanged. Before we continue, drop a quick comment for me. What are you doing while you listen? Driving, working, cooking, or winding down? Your presence here truly matters. Some details are fictionalized for storytelling and reflection. The heart of the story, the message, is what stays with you. Lynn Turner told his friends he wanted to be married by the time he was 30. He was a Cobb County motorcycle officer, 31 years old, the kind of man his colleagues called a teddy bear, laid back, fun-loving, held in high esteem by everyone who worked with him. He frequented the same bars as other law enforcement officers in Cobb County, Georgia, places where the conversation was easy and the faces were familiar. He had reached 30. Now he wanted what he had told everyone he wanted, a wife. That was when he met Julia Lynn Turner. She was a 911 operator, known around the law enforcement community as a groupie for police officers. She showed up at the bars they frequented. She followed officers around. She was bubbly, vivacious, outgoing, the life of the party in a lot of situations. Lynn was attracted to her energy. Within a few weeks of meeting in early 1993, they began dating. And within those first few weeks, Julia Lynn began showering Lynn with gifts. Expensive gifts, snakeskin boots, new clothes, trips. She took him on a cruise. She bought things Lynn would not have bought for himself. Things he did not necessarily try to buy for himself. She did those things for him. It felt like generosity. It felt like love. It felt like someone who wanted to take care of him. Lynn did not ask where the money was coming from. He only saw a woman who was giving, who was affectionate, who seemed to want the same thing he wanted. But here is what Lynn did not know. Julia Lynn Turner was making $30,000 a year as a 911 operator. $30,000. Within months of their wedding, she would buy 2 Chevrolet Camaros. One was a convertible. The other was a pace car. Each one cost about $25,000. How does a woman making $30,000 a year afford snakeskin boots and Caribbean cruises? Lynn did not ask that question. He was in love. He was finally getting what he wanted. And Julia Lynn seemed happy to give it to him. The expensive gifts kept coming. The trips, the new clothes, the boots. All of it far beyond what a 911 operator's salary could support. All of it creating a pattern that Lynn could not see because he was looking at something else. He was looking at a future. By summer of 1993, Lynn Turner and Julia Lynn Turner were planning a wedding. On August 21, 1993, they stood together and said their vows. Lynn Turner had what he wanted: a wife, a partner, a life that looked like the one he had told his friends he dreamed of building. He got what he wanted, but what he wanted would kill him. Julia Lynn Turner had champagne taste on a beer budget. She spent more than she earned. She always had. She always would. And the expensive gifts, the lavish spending, the trips and the boots and the cars, none of it was about love. It was about control. It was about creating dependency. It was about making Glenn Turner believe he had found someone who would take care of him, someone who would never hurt him, someone who valued him. But by the time Glenn Turner said "I do" on that August afternoon, he had no idea he had just married someone who would decide one day that he was worth more dead than alive. The generous gifts were real. The lavish spending was real. The bubbly affection was real. What was also real was what would come next. Less than 2 years later, Glenn Turner would be dead. Glenn Turner got his marriage, but he had less than 3 months to enjoy it. On March 2nd, 1995, Glenn walked into Kenstone Hospital in Marietta, Georgia. He was 31 years old, a firefighter in excellent physical condition. He told the emergency room staff he had the flu. His symptoms seemed ordinary at first: fever, nausea, weakness, body aches, the kind of illness that strikes thousands of people every winter. The doctors ran tests. They checked his vitals, his blood pressure, his heart rate, his temperature. They ordered blood work. Glenn waited in the examination room while Julia sat beside him. She held his hand. She asked the nurses questions. She played the role of the concerned wife perfectly. The test results came back normal. Everything looked fine on paper. The doctors suggested fluids and rest. Maybe some gelatin to settle his stomach. They saw no reason to admit him. Glenn could recover at home. But Glenn felt worse than the tests indicated. Much worse. He called his mother from the hospital. Kathy Turner, a woman who had raised Glenn to be honest and hardworking in their close-knit family, answered on the second ring. She heard something in her son's voice that frightened her. Not just illness. Something deeper. Something final. "Mom," Glenn said, his voice weak but certain. "I feel like I'm going to die." Kathy tried to reassure him. Told him it was just the flu. Told him he would feel better soon. That he was young and strong. But Glenn's words stayed with her long after she hung up the phone. The certainty in his voice. The fear. The goodbye she heard beneath the surface. The doctors discharged Glenn that afternoon. Julia drove him home to their house in Cobb County. She helped him into bed. She brought him water. She prepared gelatin in the kitchen, just as the doctors had recommended. She moved through the house quietly while Glenn rested. Glenn tried to sleep. His body ached. His stomach turned. He trusted the doctors. He trusted their diagnosis. He trusted Julia. He believed he would recover in a few days. He was wrong. The next morning, March 3rd, Julia called 911, the same emergency system she worked for as an operator. She told the dispatcher her husband was not breathing. She sounded panicked, desperate, terrified. The paramedics arrived within minutes. They found Glenn in bed, cold, still, beyond help. Glenn Turner was dead at 31 years old. The medical examiner performed an autopsy. The findings seemed to explain everything. Glenn's heart was enlarged. Cardiomegaly, a condition that can develop over time, a condition that can cause sudden death in young, otherwise healthy people. The examiner saw the enlarged heart. He saw the recent flu symptoms documented in the hospital records. He connected the dots in a straight line. He ruled Glenn's death natural causes. No further investigation was ordered. No toxicology tests were run. The case was closed before it ever opened. Glenn Turner, the firefighter who had told his friends he wanted to be married for life, was buried within days of his death. At the funeral, Julia sat in the front row. She wore black. She accepted condolences from Glenn's family and friends. She received their sympathy. And beside her sat a man Glenn's family had never seen before. He was tall, dark-haired, handsome. He stayed close to Julia throughout the service. He touched her arm. He whispered in her ear. He acted like someone who knew her well, someone who had known her for a long time, Kathy Turner watched this stranger comfort her daughter-in-law. She watched Julia lean into him. She watched the familiarity between them. And she wondered who this man was and why he was there on the day they buried her son. At Glenn Turner's funeral, Julia Lynn Turner sat beside a man Glenn's family had never seen. She did not cry. She held the stranger's hand during the service. She leaned into him when the pastor spoke about Glenn's devotion. She accepted condolences from Glenn's parents without emotion, cold, detached. The family watched her and felt something shift. Within a week, Julia moved out of the house she had shared with Glenn. Then she began collecting what he had left behind. Glenn's life insurance policy paid out $150,000. His pension benefits added more. Julia filed the paperwork quickly. The checks arrived. She deposited them. But Julia was not finished. Glenn had left $6,300 in deferred payments to his sister, money he had designated for his family. Julia filed suit to claim it. His sister fought back. Eventually, they settled. Julia took half. She went after every penny, even from the family burying their son. How much is grief worth when it can be measured in dollars and cents? Less than a month after Glenn's death, Julia revealed the answer. The mystery man at the funeral had a name: Randy Thompson. He was a Forsyth County deputy who would later become a firefighter, and he had been having an affair with Julia while she was still married to Glenn. Randy had no idea what pattern he was stepping into. He saw a woman who had lost her husband too soon. He believed he was helping her start over. He did not know that Glenn had been 29 when they met, that Glenn had wanted marriage for life. Randy was 32. He wanted the same things. Julia moved into Randy's apartment in Cumming. She got a job as an administrative assistant at the Forsyth County Courthouse, a modest salary. On paper, it looked like a fresh start. Over the next 5 years, Julia and Randy had 2 children together. They never married. Randy worked his shifts. Julia worked at the courthouse. They built a life that looked normal from the outside, but the spending never stopped. Expensive gifts, new furniture, vacations, dinners out, the same pattern that had marked her marriage to Glenn. The difference was that now Julia had $150,000 to burn through. Glenn's insurance money funded the lifestyle Randy's salary could never support. Randy did not ask where the money came from. He knew about the insurance payout. He believed Julia was being careful with it, building something for their children. He was wrong. By late 2000, Glenn's insurance money was gone, all of it. $150,000 spent in 5 years. Julia had accumulated $35,000 in credit card debt. She was behind on house payments. The bills piled up. The calls from creditors started. Randy Thompson separated from Julia. He moved into an apartment of his own. He still saw his children. He still hoped things could be fixed. But he needed distance. He did not know that the pattern had already repeated, that he had walked the same path Glenn had walked, that Julia's financial desperation had a history. History does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes, and Randy Thompson was about to learn that the hard way. By January 2001, Julia Lynn was drowning in credit card debt, and Randy Thompson had just separated from her. The money from Glenn Turner's death was gone. Randy did not know it yet, but he was worth more to Julia dead than alive. On January 20th, 2001, Randy Thompson canceled plans with a friend to have dinner with Julia Lynn at a steakhouse called Longhorn. They had been separated for weeks. Randy lived in his own apartment. Julia had the house and the debt. But she called and asked him to meet her. One dinner, just to talk. Randy said yes. He still loved her. He still believed they could fix things. He had no idea that Glenn Turner had believed the same things. That believing had cost Glenn everything. 2 days after that dinner, Randy Thompson would be dead. The symptoms started the same way: vomiting, headache, dizziness. Randy drove himself to the hospital. The doctors examined him, ran tests. They found his heart was enlarged, cardiomegaly. The same condition that had killed Glenn Turner 6 years earlier. Randy was 32 years old, no history of heart disease, a firefighter, physically fit. The doctors could not explain why his heart had suddenly enlarged, but they saw no immediate danger. They told him to go home and rest. Randy went back to his apartment in Cumming. Alone, on January 22nd, his co-workers from the fire department tried to reach him. He did not answer his phone. He did not show up for his shift. They knew Randy. He did not miss work. They drove to his apartment. They knocked. No answer. They called his name through the door. Nothing. They kicked the door down. Randy Thompson was dead. The Forsyth County medical examiner performed an autopsy. The findings mirrored what had been found in Glenn Turner's body 6 years earlier. Randy's heart was enlarged, severely enlarged. The examiner saw the recent hospital visit, the documented symptoms, the diagnosis already on record. He ruled Randy's death natural causes. No toxicology screen was ordered. No deeper investigation was opened. Randy Thompson had died of the same condition that killed Glenn Turner. Same symptoms, same diagnosis, same woman left behind to collect the life insurance. 6 years after Glenn Turner died of an enlarged heart, Randy Thompson died of an enlarged heart. The medical examiner in Forsyth County did not know about the findings in Cobb County. The two cases were filed in different jurisdictions. Different years, no one connected them. Julia did not bring Randy's 2 young children to their father's funeral. She stayed at work at the Forsyth County courthouse as if nothing had happened, as if the father of her children had not just died alone. She filed for Randy's life insurance benefits, but Randy's mother was watching, and she was not satisfied. How many coincidences does it take before coincidence becomes pattern? Weeks after the funeral, Randy's mother received a letter from a woman she had never met. The return address was from Cobb County. The signature read, Kathy Turner. Kathy had heard about Randy Thompson's death, heard that he had been involved with Julia Lynn Turner, heard that he had died of an enlarged heart. She wrote to Randy's mother because she recognized something the medical examiners had not, a pattern. 2 men, 6 years apart, both dead of enlarged hearts, both connected to the same woman. The 2 mothers compared notes, dates, symptoms, medical findings, insurance payouts. The timeline Glenn's family remembered, the timeline Randy's family had just lived through. The pieces fit together in a way that made both women's blood run cold. 2 mothers who had never met, who lived in different counties, who had buried their sons 6 years apart, were about to do what the system had failed to do twice. They were about to connect the dead men they both loved and the one woman who had stood beside both their graves. When the families contacted police with their suspicions, investigators reopened Randy Thompson's case and sent it to the state crime lab. Dr. Kapanen, the state crime lab medical examiner, was the kind of forensic pathologist who looked for what others missed. He pulled Randy Thompson's autopsy records and studied what the Forsyth County examiner had documented: enlarged heart, flu-like symptoms, natural causes. The conclusion was clean. Too clean. Dr. Kapanen went deeper. He examined the tissue samples that had been preserved from Randy's autopsy. Under the microscope, he found something abnormal, something the first examiner had either missed or dismissed: crystal formations in the kidney tissue. They did not belong there. He ordered a test for ethylene glycol. The lab technician ran the analysis on Randy's tissue samples. The process was technical, precise, one measurement after another, numbers on a screen. But somewhere in the sequence, the technician made an error. A decimal point, one position off. The result came back showing only a trace amount of ethylene glycol. So small, the report labeled it insignificant. Background noise. Nothing that would kill a man. Dr. Kaponen looked at the number. Something felt wrong. The crystals he had seen were not insignificant. They were pronounced clear. The kind of formation that suggested high exposure, not trace contamination. He ordered the test again, 1 decimal point. That was all that stood between justice and another closed case. The second test came back with a number 10 times higher. Not a trace, not background. Massive ethylene glycol poisoning, the kind of level that stops a heart. That shuts down kidneys. That kills. Dr. Kaponen now had proof. Randy Thompson did not die of natural causes. He was murdered. Ethylene glycol is a colorless, odorless liquid. Sweet to the taste. You might know it as antifreeze. The chemical people pour into car radiators to keep engines from freezing in winter. But in the human body, ethylene glycol breaks down into toxic metabolites. Glycolic acid, oxalic acid. These acids crystallize in the kidneys as calcium oxalate, hard, sharp, unmistakable under a microscope. The crystals Dr. Kaponen had found were not anomalies. They were evidence. Then he learned something that changed everything. Randy Thompson had been involved with a woman named Julia Lynn Turner. And 6 years earlier, her husband Glenn Turner had died under identical circumstances. Flu-like symptoms. Enlarged heart. Natural causes. Dr. Kaponen requested Glenn Turner's autopsy records from Cobb County. The file was old, dusty, closed. The original examiner had retired, but the tissue samples still existed. Preserved. Waiting. Dr. Kaponen examined them under the microscope. There they were. The same calcium oxalate crystals, the same formations. The same signature left behind by ethylene glycol poisoning. Glenn Turner's body had been buried for 6 years, and all that time, the evidence had been there.
Ethylene glycol is a colorless, odorless liquid. You might know it as antifreeze.
Written in crystal inside his kidneys, 2 men, 6 years apart, killed by the same chemical, connected to the same woman. The Cobb County examiner had ruled Glenn's death natural. The Forsyth County examiner had ruled Randy's death natural. 2 different jurisdictions, 2 separate cases. Neither examiner had known about the other. Neither had tested for poison. And a decimal point error had nearly buried the truth a 3rd time. But Dr. Kaponen knew now. Both men had been murdered. And he knew what killed them. The chemical no one had thought to look for was colorless, odorless, sweet, and deadly. It was ethylene glycol, better known as antifreeze. And it had one more secret to reveal: how Julia Lynn Turner had fed it to 2 men without either of them knowing they were being poisoned. How do you poison someone without them knowing they are being poisoned? The answer is simple. Ethylene glycol tastes sweet. Not bitter, not metallic. Sweet. You can hide it in soup. You can hide it in Jell-O. You can hide it in sweet tea. Anything with enough flavor to mask what little taste antifreeze has. Investigators looked back at what each man had eaten and drunk before they died. March 1995. Glenn Turner came home from the hospital sick with flu-like symptoms. The doctors told him to drink fluids, to eat gelatin. Julia prepared gelatin for him that evening. She told him she was going to the store. She left. When she came back, Glenn was dying. No one questioned the gelatin. It was a caring gesture, a wife taking care of her sick husband. The bowl was never tested. It was thrown away. But now, 6 years later, investigators understood what that bowl of gelatin had really been. The perfect delivery method for a poison that tastes sweet. The most dangerous poison is the one that tastes like love. January 2001. Randy Thompson, sick and separated from Julia, let her visit him at his apartment. She brought him iced tea. He liked sweet tea. She brought him chicken soup. Both were perfect vehicles for hiding antifreeze. Randy drank the tea. He ate the soup. He trusted her. 2 men. 6 years apart. Fed poison disguised as comfort. Gelatin for one. Sweet tea and soup for the other. Both delivered by the same woman. Before investigators reveal what they found in Julia's financial records. Are you still with this story? Comment A if you think she planned this from the start, or B if desperation drove her to it. Add one reason in 5 to 10 words. Please note, some details ahead are recreated for narrative clarity. The pattern is what matters. Investigators dug into Julia's finances. They found Randy Thompson had taken out a life insurance policy for $200,000. Julia was the beneficiary. But then, they found something else. The policy had lapsed. Randy had stopped making payments. The insurance company had sent notices, warning letters, final notices. The policy expired 1 month before Randy died. Julia had no idea. She murdered him for money she would never collect. Phone records told the rest. On the day of Randy Thompson's funeral, Julia called the insurance agent. She was calling to collect the $200,000. The agent would later testify in court. He remembered the conversation clearly. He told Julia the policy had lapsed. There would be no payout. The witness testified to a long silence on Julia's end of the line. Not shock at Randy's death, not grief. Silence at learning the policy had expired. Silence at realizing she had killed him 1 month too late. She had killed Randy Thompson believing she was about to collect $200,000. She had poisoned him with antifreeze hidden in sweet tea and soup. She had watched him die. She had gone to work the next day as if nothing had happened. And when she called to collect, she learned the policy had been dead for a month. She was a month late collecting. But she was not a day late murdering him. The motive was clear. The method was proven. The pattern was undeniable. Julia Lynn Turner had killed Randy Thompson 1 month too late to collect the insurance money. But she did not know that when she did it, which meant she had believed, when she poisoned him, that she was about to get $200,000. To prove Julia Lynn Turner had killed Glenn Turner the same way she killed Randy Thompson, investigators needed Glenn's body. The motive was clear. The method was proven, but the pattern needed confirmation. Randy Thompson's death was now ruled a homicide. Glenn Turner's death was still officially natural causes. To connect the 2 murders, investigators needed to prove Glenn had been poisoned the same way. In June 2001, 6 years after Glenn Turner was buried, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation obtained a court order to exhume his body. Kathy Turner, Glenn's mother, received the request. Investigators asked permission to disturb her son's grave, to dig up what she had laid to rest 6 years earlier, to open the casket she had closed, to examine the son she had already grieved. She said yes. She wanted answers more than she wanted peace. The cemetery in Cobb County. Workers arrived early in the morning. They located Glenn Turner's grave. The headstone marked the place where he had been laid to rest in March 1995. 6 years and 3 months had passed. The workers began to dig. The earth came up slowly, layer by layer. the casket came into view. They lifted it from the ground. Inside was what Julia Lynn Turner thought was buried forever. Evidence. Death keeps secrets, but the body remembers. The casket was transported to the state crime lab. Dr. Kaponen was waiting. He had already found ethylene glycol in Randy Thompson's body. He had already seen the calcium oxalate crystals that proved Randy was poisoned. Now, he would search for the same signature in Glenn Turner. Dr. Kaponen performed a second autopsy on Glenn's remains. 6 years in the ground. 6 years of decomposition. 6 years of chemical changes in tissue and bone. But some evidence does not decay. Some signatures remain. He examined the kidneys first. That is where ethylene glycol leaves its mark. When the body metabolizes antifreeze, it produces oxalic acid. The acid combines with calcium in the blood. Together they form calcium oxalate crystals. Hard, sharp, sharp, insoluble. The crystals lodge in the kidneys and stay there. They do not break down. They do not disappear. The amount of ethylene glycol that should ever be found in a dead person's body is 0. Dr. Kaponen placed tissue samples under the microscope. He adjusted the focus. He scanned the kidney tissue section by section, looking for the same formations he had found in Randy Thompson, looking for proof that Glenn Turner had been murdered the same way. And then he found them, calcium oxalate crystals, scattered through Glenn Turner's kidney tissue, the same formations, the same shapes. 2 men, 6 years apart, both dead of what had been ruled natural causes, both buried with the evidence still inside them, both killed by the same poison delivered by the same woman. The crystals in Glenn's kidneys matched the crystals in Randy's kidneys exactly. The same poison, the same method, the same killer. A signature written in crystal that connected 2 deaths 6 years apart, 2 graves, 2 autopsies. One undeniable truth. Dr. Kaponen changed Glenn Turner's official cause of death from natural causes to homicide. The first medical examiner had missed it, had seen the enlarged heart and stopped looking, had ruled it natural and closed the case. But the evidence had been there all along, waiting in Glenn's kidneys for someone to look deeper. The pattern was no longer suspicion. It was signature, written in crystal in 2 different bodies 6 years apart. Both deaths pointed to one person, Julia Lynn Turner. In November 2002, Julia Lynn Turner was indicted by a Cobb County grand jury and charged with the murder of Glenn Turner. The evidence pointed to her. The forensics proved it. The financial records confirmed motive. Now, the courts would decide if the pattern was murder. The trial was moved to Houston County. No fair jury could be found in Cobb County, where Julia had worked at the courthouse and where Glenn had died. In May 2004, the case went to trial. Patrick Head, the prosecutor, stood before the jury. He looked at the 12 people who would decide Julia's fate. He opened with one line: "This case is about lust, greed, and murder." 3 weeks of testimony followed. Forensic pathologists, financial experts, family members who had watched Glenn die, witnesses who remembered the gelatin, the insurance agent who remembered the silence on the phone. The evidence was circumstantial. No one had seen Julia pour antifreeze into Glenn's food, but the chemical signature did not lie. May 14th, 2004. The jury deliberated for 5 hours, a 3-week trial. A circumstantial case built on forensic chemistry and financial motive. 5 hours to decide. They returned with a verdict: guilty. 12 strangers saw what Glenn's family had seen, a woman who valued money more than life. Julia Lynn Turner showed no fear, no remorse. She sat in the courtroom as the verdict was read and did not react. The judge sentenced her to life in prison. Glenn Turner's family finally had justice. 9 years after his death, 9 years after Julia collected his insurance money and walked away. But the state was not finished. 3 years later, in March 2007, the state of Georgia tried Julia Lynn Turner for the murder of Randy Thompson. The prosecutor was Penny Penn. The evidence was the same: ethylene glycol, calcium oxalate crystals, a life insurance policy. The only difference was the delivery method: sweet tea instead of gelatin, chicken soup instead of comfort food from a hospital visit. This time, the prosecution sought the death penalty. Penny Penn stood before the jury and described what Randy Thompson's death had been like: the poison shutting down his kidneys, the pain, the suffering, the hours it took for him to die alone in his apartment. It was wantonly horrible and inhumane, Penn said. He suffered. The jury heard the same pattern. 2 men, 6 years apart, both poisoned, both killed for insurance money that Julia believed she would collect, both murdered by the same woman who sat in the courtroom and showed no emotion. The trial moved toward sentencing. The prosecution pushed for death. But before the jury decided, one person stood to speak. Julia's mother, whose daughter had murdered 2 men, stood before the jury. She did not speak for Julia. She spoke for Randy Thompson's 2 children. They were 8 and 11 years old. They had already lost their father. If the jury sentenced Julia to death, the children would grow up knowing their grandmother's execution had been carried out, knowing that their father's murder had led to another death. She pleaded for mercy, not for Julia, for the children. She killed their father and they saved her life. The jury rejected the death penalty. March 24, 2007, the verdict came back guilty. The sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole. 2 men, 2 juries, 2 life sentences, and 1 woman who sat through both trials and never once looked like she believed she would get caught. Julia Lynn Turner, convicted double murderer, would spend the rest of her life in prison, but not as long as anyone thought. Between 2006 and 2010, Julia Lynn Turner filed 2 appeals against her convictions. Both were rejected. The Georgia Supreme Court denied her direct appeals. The habeas corpus petition was denied. Every legal avenue closed, every door locked. Julia Lynn Turner would spend the rest of her life in Metro State Penitentiary for women, with no possibility of parole. She was 42 years old. She had been convicted of killing 2 men for insurance money. She had sat through 2 trials without showing remorse. She had listened to families describe the men she murdered and shown no emotion. But when the final appeal was denied, something changed. The reality of never leaving prison settled in. On August 30th, 2010, guards found Julia Lynn Turner unresponsive in her prison cell. She had hoarded her blood pressure medication over time, saving pills, hiding them, building up enough to end her own life the way she had ended 2 others. The medical examiner who reviewed her death noted the irony. She had poisoned 2 men with antifreeze hidden in food. Now she had poisoned herself with medication she was supposed to take to stay alive. One investigator who had worked her case said it plainly. She'd done it to 2 guys. She knew how to do it, so she poisoned herself. Julia Lynn Turner died in prison. Not from old age, not from natural causes. From the same method she had used on Glenn Turner and Randy Thompson. Control, calculation, poison. What makes someone capable of watching a person they once loved die slowly, knowing they are the one killing them? Julia Lynn Turner died knowing she had killed 2 men for money. She died knowing she was caught. She died knowing the forensic evidence had proven what she thought was buried. What she never knew, what no transcript or confession ever revealed, was what she felt in her kitchen in March 1995, stirring gelatin for a man she had already decided to murder. What went through her mind as she watched Glenn eat it? Whether she felt anything at all, The case files close on facts. The chemistry of ethylene glycol, the calcium oxalate crystals, the insurance policies, the timelines. But they do not answer the question that haunts every true crime story. Not how. Why? Glenn Turner's life ended at 31. He wanted to be married for life. He got less than 3 months. Randy Thompson's life ended at 32. He wanted to build a family. He left behind 2 children who would grow up without him. Both men trusted Julia Lynn Turner. Both men believed she loved them. Both men were wrong. Their children grew up without fathers. The families carry the weight of what happened, living with questions that will never be answered, living with the knowledge that someone they let into their lives took everything. Poison is patient, and so is justice. Julia Lynn Turner fed Glenn Turner gelatin when he was sick. She fed Randy Thompson sweet tea when he was vulnerable. She gave them comfort, food that hid the bitterness of antifreeze, something sweet so they would never taste what was coming. They trusted her. They ate what she prepared. They drank what she offered. And they died. In the end, that same sweetness was the one thing that convicted her. The chemical signature ethylene glycol left behind. The crystals that formed in their kidneys. The proof that stayed in their bodies long after Julia thought it was buried. Glenn Turner and Randy Thompson did not die of weak hearts. They died trusting a woman who knew exactly which sweetness could hide the taste of death. Glenn Turner and Randy Thompson should have grown old. They should have watched their children grow up. They should have had decades ahead of them. Instead, their lives were cut short by someone they trusted, someone who saw them not as people, but as profit. 2 families carry that loss every day. 2 sets of children grew up without fathers. The weight of what Julia Lynn Turner did extends far beyond her prison cell. This case reminds us that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it comes disguised as care. Sometimes it's hidden in something as innocent as a bowl of gelatin or a glass of sweet tea. The mothers who refuse to accept natural causes as an answer. Kathy Turner and Randy's mother proved that a mother's instinct can see what science initially misses. Their persistence gave both families the truth, even if it couldn't bring back what was lost. If this story stayed with you, please subscribe to hear more true stories that matter. Leave a comment below. What struck you most about this case? And if you know someone who values truth and justice, share this with them. Thank you for listening with care and respect. This story is based on a real case, with some scenes dramatized to convey the emotional truth of what happened. My deepest respect goes to the families of Glenn Turner and Randy Thompson, who lived through what we can only try to understand.